All right, the biggest matchup in the SEC this week, LSU heading to Texas A&M. Kyle Field, we know, will be rocking for this game. 2 one-loss teams, but both are undefeated in SEC play. So one of these suckers getting out of here undefeated in SEC play. The question is, who's it going to be? And I think the quarterback matchup is going to tell a lot of the story here. Garrett Nussmeier for LSU having a very good season, Ari. I mean, he has been over 300 yards passing in all but one game this season. He's lit it up, but I'm curious, how do you think he does against one of the most ferocious pass rushes in the country?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that you are always worried about when you're going to Kyle Field against this defensive line, right? Like, how is the communication going to be? How is the crowd going to impact the offense? How quickly is he going to have to get the ball out before he's on his back? Like, these are all the things that you have to consider. But Andy, let me ask you this. Like, when you think about underrated players, and maybe I'll write a column about this on On3 this week, but who do you think are the 5 most underrated players? That's another video. But is Garrett Nussmeier number 1?
Oh, he's up there. He's up because you don't hear a lot of praise for him, but I actually feel like I can make the argument that he's the best quarterback in the SEC right now.
I think that it would be hard to not make it. Who are you picking? Am I forgetting somebody?
I don't think you are. I'm looking at his stats. I'm looking at his game log, and you look at his 3 worst statistical games in terms of yards per attempt: South Carolina, Ole Miss, Arkansas. What do all those teams have in common?
Very good defensive lines.
Very good defensive lines. Great edge rushers. They get after the quarterback. But the other thing that all those games have in common is LSU won them. So, like Garrett Nussmeier's his stats against Ole Miss, and I think the Ole Miss game is a kind of educational one for this experience with Texas A&M, because I think those two are the best defensive lines in the SEC. So against Ole Miss, he was 22 of 51, 43%. That is not good. Only averaged 6.6 yards per attempt, but still threw for 337 yards, 3 TDs, 2 picks. You gotta eliminate the picks from that. But they kept chucking. They kept having faith in him. And guess what? In the fourth quarter and overtime, he came through with some dimes.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And I think that as the season is going on, he's getting more seasoned as the starting quarterback there. And in a world where the sport lacks superstars at the position, I'm actually kind of shocked that he isn't getting his due. But I also think too, Andy, that when you lose to USC in the opener and people kind of feel like, you're in a bad spot after losing Harold Perkins, one of the best defensive players in the country for the year, that in this sport, we have a tendency to put teams on the back burner. And now LSU is going into a rough environment in a primetime game against a team that also hasn't lost to the SEC. And if they win this game and he plays well, LSU, I should say, goes back into the fixture of the college football playoff discussion. You start talking about whether or not they actually are good enough to win the SEC. And I think that changes the way that we view Nussmeier, this program. And honestly, like in a year where there's not a lot of bona fide draft eligible players at the quarterback position, like may or may not get taken there, but like, who are you taking?
Right. I do think he's got a chance to make that argument. And like, I've talked to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl about him. And even before this season started, he loved what he'd seen from Nussmeier in his limited time playing behind Jaden Daniels. So let's talk about this in terms of his Prize Picks number. If you're not playing Prize Picks already, download that app, use the code STAPLES, play $5. All new users get $50 instantly when they pay $5 and use that code STAPLES. And you're picking squares. So it's a player and a statistical category for Garrett Nussmeier in this game against Texas A&M. The number is 284.5 passing yards. That is a lot of yards, especially against this defense. You decide if you think it's going to be less than or more than that. Now, if you're on the app, you can click and see what he's done in his past 5 games, and you will learn that he has thrown for more than 285 yards in 4 of the last 5. He did not against Arkansas. And I think a lot of that is because LSU was actually running the ball fairly effectively against Arkansas. They averaged 4.3 yards a carry, which doesn't sound that great, but given what other offenses have been able to do against the Hogs, that's actually pretty good. So I I think they're going to have to rely more on Nussmeier to throw them to a win against Texas A&M. I'm inclined to go more than win or lose for LSU, because a lot of times you say, well, if they do this, they're going to win. If they don't do this, they're going to lose. I actually think this goes more than win or lose.
Neither of us on Monday's show picked Texas A&M, did we?
No, we both picked LSU to win.
I don't know that LSU wins this game because Texas A&M's got a really good defense. I don't know that LSU wins this football game without him crossing this number.
I think he's going to cross the number no matter what. Like, yeah. I think they're going to, like, you go back to the Ole Miss game, which was similar kind of defense with a really good defensive line. They just kept chucking the ball, and they had to, because they were trying to come back and win the game. Like, I don't see this as a game where LSU's defense just completely shuts down Texas A&M's offense and they can just cruise with a lead. Like, I think they're going to have to keep throwing the ball. And so that's why I think he's going more than no matter what. Yeah,
very underappreciated player. If LSU wins, hopefully he becomes more of a fixture in the national conversation. I think LSU is a really exciting team. And you know what? Texas A&M is too. It's going to be an awesome game. I can't wait to see how he performs.
It is going to be a blast. Cannot wait to see Garrett Nussmeier against Nick Scorton, who's really scary, especially if you're a quarterback.